Howdy, folks. We're camping next to the Whitlock Mountains in southeastern Arizona, and we've got a messy problem on our hands. The Blackwater holding tank has sprung a leak, and we're going to need to fix it. We're miles from town, so it's up to us to get the job done. Let's take a look at the situation. We've got one large stress crack and two smaller cracks branching off the main crack. Holes were drilled at the tips of each crack to prevent the cracks from growing further. Eternabond Alumabond tape was applied as a temporary repair. Unfortunately, the tape did not provide a good enough seal to stop the leaking. After dumping the tank and giving it a good flush, I removed the tape and cleaned up the surface with some old rags and rubbing alcohol. The cracks are on the bottom of the tank and easy to access. It's best to remove the tank before welding, if possible. And if the cracks are on top of the tank, that is the only option. Removing the tank is not possible in our situation, so we'll be performing this weld upside down. If you have a tank made of ABS plastic, a patch kit can be used. If your tank is made of polyethylene, polypropylene, PVC, or plexiglass, plastic welding is the only permanent repair method. This is the True Power Plastic Welding Kit by Gino Development, which I purchased on Amazon.com for about $27. The kit includes an 80-watt plastic welding iron, multi-purpose welding rods, steel wire mesh, a wire brush, and a hot iron stand. It's a good idea to use welding rods made of the same type of plastic as the holding tank. So I also ordered 5 feet of polyethylene welding strips. I've cut the piece of wire mesh into 1-inch wide strips, which we'll use later to reinforce the cracked area. For safety, wear leather gloves to protect your hands from the hot tip of the welding iron and from hot melted plastic. A respirator is important to avoid breathing the nauseous fumes created when plastic melts. A simple dust mask such as this will not do. This is the 3M 6500 series half face piece reusable respirator, and it's a much better choice. The downside to this type of respirator is that it does not protect the eyes from harmful vapors. To protect both the eyes and the lungs, the 3M 6000 series full face piece reusable respirator is a good choice. Both respirators work with many different filters and cartridges for protection against a variety of airborne contaminants. For protection against vapors produced while plastic welding, go with the 3M 60926 P100 cartridge, which is made to filter out gas and vapors. Only perform plastic welding in a well-ventilated area, as even wearing a respirator does not offer 100% protection from harmful gases and fumes. If you don't have a full-face respirator, safety glasses are also important, especially if welding upside down to avoid an eyeful of melted plastic. Here we're using the tip of the welding iron to create a valley down the middle of the crack. This is important as it bonds the cracked edges together, at the same time making room for additional plastic to be added to fill the gap and reinforce the damaged area. Be aware of where the hot iron tip is at all times. Trust me, it's pretty easy to start burning holes in the plastic tank unintentionally. Take your time and do not apply too much force, or you can go too deep and gouge out a hole in the plastic. This plastic welder gets very hot, as you can see from all that smoke. So let the welder do the work. If one edge of the crack is raised, apply force until it is flush with the other side, as you run the tip of the iron down the crack. We're using the edge of the iron to deepen the valley and provide more surface area for the new plastic to be melted in place to fill the void. Here we're folding the raised edge of the valley inward to partially fill the gap and make the edge flush. In hindsight, this step was probably unnecessary, and the folded over plastic likely just got in the way when new plastic was melted to fill the void. A plastic rod is being melted to fill in the valley. Use the edge of the iron to melt and cut through a piece of the rod, then melt the piece with the base of the iron and spread to fill the gap. As I found out, it's best to melt off just a small piece of plastic at a time. Melting off a piece that is too large will be hard to work with, and some of that melted plastic could end up on your hands or arms. Next, we apply the wire mesh, which will act as an anchor, binding the two sides of plastic and preventing the crack from reforming. The wire mesh is held in place while heat is applied directly to the mesh, which melts it into the plastic, bonding the two together. A flathead screwdriver is useful to hold down the mesh, just long enough for the melted plastic to cool and set, securing the mesh in place. If you don't have wire mesh on hand, a stack of paper clips will also work. Each rounded end of a paper clip acts like an anchor, and once melted into the plastic, it holds the damaged area together, likewise preventing a crack from reforming. Once the wire mesh is melted into the plastic, take a plastic rod and melt more plastic to completely cover the mesh, sealing it below a new layer of plastic. Lastly, examine the weld and fill in any gaps with additional plastic. Use the base of the welding iron to smooth any rough spots. After performing repairs, you'll want to test the results. If a patch kit was used, allow 24 hours for curing. If the tank was plastic welded, it can be tested immediately. Fill the tank through the toilet and allow the tank to sit for 30 minutes while closely monitoring the tank for leaks. If dry, pat yourself on the back for a job well done. If moisture is present, melt more plastic over the area that appears to be leaking until a watertight seal is formed. Only time will tell if our plastic welding repair holds up to the rough and rocky roads of RV boondocking. If not, we'll try again. After all, it's plastic, and it can be melted over and over again. Enjoy your campsite, and we'll see you next time. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And while you're at it, click the subscribe button to stay up to date on the tips and tricks you'll need for the ultimate RV adventure.